Yo, what's up, guys? Yes, I'm still playing Etheria Restart, just not making that much content. I make content when I have content, such as this. I managed to get Mythic in this ranking, which is not as high as previous season because there's a lot more people in Mythic. But I did do it in a way where I did not want to play the meta. And not playing the meta means I'm playing Cleave. Like, sure, I'm using a little bit of Plume and that kind of stuff. But I will be showcasing some of my latest matches over here because I actually climbed with pretty much just 4 losers. I lost just 1 over here. I was already safe in Mythic, but since it was 2 days ago and there's still like more than 7 days on the clock, I would have DK'd. So I have to keep that in mind. I'm not sure how much the DK is exactly. Couldn't find that anywhere. So for that reason, I did do 1 more match. I did actually lose this one because my Mio decided to not freeze the Holden. And then I got clapped by counters, which is also still a thing out there. Also, yeah, let me just showcase the builds first because I do know that most people are more interested in the builds than the actual matches. But first, I'll go over the builds and then I'll go over the matches which I found interesting. So just the last few matches out there to get to Mythic. And let's just get going from there. So first of all, the builds, I'm not using that many units, but I'm using a whole bunch of units on pretty fast gear. So my Messiah is one of those that I used a lot. My Messiah is looking at a 4-1-5 at the moment. I cannot go in the Prowlers over here, but I'll just mention the Prowlers that I do have on these units. And it's mainly focusing on a lot of crit damage, and with that a lot of crit damage, he's just doing a lot of damage on the count. That's the main thing he's doing. Plus, I mostly put him in the 3 slot. If he is either stolen or banned, I do put the same thing for the Yelly. I have this Heinrich. It is a Revelation. It's pretty decently fast. He is sitting at a 5-1-5, I think, for the Prowlers. I'm not using him too much, though, but he's pretty decent. Then we have the Lily, which is sitting at a 204. I'm not using Lily that much. It's more of like a 4th or 5th pick if I do need something along those lines. Lilium is a Law of Silence, but not a Bloodbath. I'm not using this one that much either. This is actually 5-5. Lily is the 5-5-1. Then we have Yelly, which is similar to the Messiah. It's mainly in the slot. Oh, wait, I actually messed up her build. Wait. I messed up her Fury build. I'll fix that later. But yeah, I actually did climb with this one with a messed up Fury build. I should absolutely fix that. That is sometimes that it's good to go back and forth and actually check all of your stats. But yep, she's actually a 5-5-5 build right there. Also for dupes, Messiah has 2 dupes, Yelly has 2 dupes. The dupes on the supports don't really matter that much. Then we have my Freya, which is not my fastest unit out there, but it is a pretty decently fast unit. It is on Bulwark. It is a 213. She's sitting at a 4-1-1 with, of course, a Kodecker in there to be as fast as possible. And also, it does help where I can go for the Swift Raid rather than for anything else because I do more Doki than other stuff. So that just helps out a little bit more. Then we have the Mio Jackal Guard. A little bit of a slower set. Is mainly held back by this one not being that great. It's also a Bulwark, so it does help with the Freya out there. And it's also more of like a 4 or 5 pick. A lot of units that I just mentioned are 4 or 5 picks thus far. This thing, not even geared. Obel is used from time to time. It's also just sitting at a decent speed. But then we go into units that I actually do use a lot. So my Tsukiyomi is my most picked unit. It is a 220. She's only sitting at a 4-1-1, so she's definitely not high on the skill ups. But that's all she needs for just getting extra speed on any of the other allies, which in most cases are going to be either the Yelly or the Messiah. And then you just deal an insane amount of damage from there. Besides that, it's just all about the speed. Like, this pretty much has like all of my main speed gear that I do have. I have a slight faster set, but that is if I pull everything towards the Freya. So it's a little bit more spread out. Then I have the Plume, which is also sitting at a 204. Decent amount of accuracy. She's currently sitting, I think, at a 544, I think. She will probably be 555 at some point because she's just that strong, that good all around. But she's not really the main usage of my team altogether. Then one unit that is actually used a lot and is really strong, which is Biotin. She's sitting at a 206. She's sitting at a 441 for the Prowlers. And she's actually on a Strive build, which a lot of people don't really expect, but is pretty nice, especially into Freya plus Plume combinations, because Freya plus Plume both give attack bar gain towards the Biotin, and then Biotin moves and I clap your ass. So that is one of those things you will see in a few matches that does actually work very nice. And that is the main reason she is not on Bulwark. Also, these two are pretty fast. I did recently get one over here. So I'm trying to, wait, where was it? I think I got a 15. Was it over there? Was it over there? I think one of those I got, yeah, this one I got into a 15. So if I can replace that, it's +2. But then I would have to find like a good replacement on a 13 over here, which I don't have just yet, but can add a little bit more speed over there. Then one more unit that I also use is a Claws, mainly because of the high base speed. It's also a Bulwarker, and then it's just throwing off an S2. The accuracy is definitely low, but I had to find like my very much leftover gear that is still speedy enough, which ended up with this one. But since it's a Dark Moon, it does get a little bit of accuracy on that turn, so it does help out a little bit more. Any of the other units, I simply did not use. I didn't use Sanya, I didn't use this, didn't use that, didn't use that, didn't use that. Like all of these things, I just simply did not use. So those are the only units that I was drafting, but let me show you how I was drafting those. So this is a clip of me playing my final matches. I'm going to be putting it at ×2 speed for just speeding things up a little bit and just giving you the understanding of what I was doing. So most of the time I was heavily speed contesting. So the heavy speed contest came from having either Freya in my team or having the Tsukiyomi in my team. If one of the two was stolen, I always went for the other one. And the thing is, if you go Plume together with Freya, you have a lot of pushdowns and those kind of things because of the Freya passive being sitting on the 4, which does help out a lot right there. I always put my DPS main unit in the slot 3. I haven't had any issues where I didn't have any of a DPS unit available, but it could happen that you kind of want to have, like, I've seen people use like Romochas and stuff, which does kind of work. So in this case, I just go for the Claws. I ban out their fastest unit potentially. The Mio could be decently fast, but in most cases, people do lock in their fastest unit first. So in this case, going into the match, I'm still going to keep it at ×2 speed just to keep things a little bit faster. But the moment we go for this skill, his Heinrich did move after, but because of the Heinrich, we actually had a push up on the Biotin. Otherwise, his unit would have moved. Because of the boost up on the Biotin, my Yelly goes, Yelly's high on damage with the wrong Fury set. But that is an easy clear from there. So those are the main kind of things that I was aiming for. Also, finding matches was relatively quick. Most of the time, I was banning out Doki. At some point, I switched around if I did know certain people to ban out the Ling Lo or banning out the Fucho. It kind of depended on what I was fighting, how I was fighting things. So especially against people that do have a Sanya, Holden, those kind of things, I definitely did like my Messiah a lot more than I liked the Yili because of the protection on self. The protection on self was definitely very important. So in this case, the moment that they go super hard on turn 2 kind of things, I don't have to go as much for speed, so a Freya is not as much of a must. But in this case, I still wanted to add in the attack buff, and then we just have like something slightly interesting for like the final pick. Could be a Plume. In this case, Plume is banned. But most of those things that are kind of annoying. In the most cases, I was actually banning out the Fucho. Not sure if that is the best ban, but that is a unit I just kind of tried in the normal arena to fight a few times and wasn't having that much of success against. Good thing about the Freya in this case is I can go for an S2. Still go for an S3 over here. And then we just are able to do a lot of damage this way. And we're nearly taking out things. Keep in mind that my Messiah is looking at a 415. If I add a little bit extra kit damage, I would definitely do a little bit more damage. So I will be aiming for that damage because in the end, Messiah is definitely better with more damage. That's also where I probably will kind of keep using the pieces where at some point you can buy dupes from. Keep stacking that on the Messiah. I'm actually not fully sure if I win this match. Them banning the Biotin is the smartest move for them out there. That is 100% sure. Because the Biotin is the one that gives the extra turn. And we'll see that later. Where I can go for 2 Messiah Cleaves in a row. And 2 Messiah Cleaves in a row will definitely mess up people really badly. So it is still protect the Messiah comp. Trying to get the damage in. If I had max skilled on that one right there. Like max skilled on the 3 on the Tsukiyomi. I would have had the turn with the Messiah. But since she's sitting at a 411. She's just not giving enough bar in a second rotation. So I am probably thinking about making her the lattice moving next. We did get pushback right there, so we have the cooldown increased on my units right there. So, or at least on the Messiah, which is a little bit annoying. And he's getting a good bit of healing off, but yeah, I'm just trying to still stomp my way through it. My units are actually still decently in surviving, but it's not looking that great. So in this case, let's see. I'm not too sure if I won this match. I think I lost this match at first, yep. and then we face the same player again. So it's always good to learn from your mistakes, what you made in the previous round. So in this case, it's like, okay, not going to be banning out the Doki. I do know that that was the more annoying unit for me to deal with, the Ling Lo. So I was just thinking, he was actually also taking his time. So in this case, he went for the Biotin, which was also his post-ban in the last round, which definitely does make sense. So in this case, Plume is available, which he banned in the last round. So I do have Plume available. I could go for a Plume plus an Obol kind of scenario and then just dot him to death while still have like a DPS in the 3 slot. So there's a lot of options you could go your way around, even if they'll ban out your Biotin, which is actually one of the main carries, which we will see later. So in this case, I was still thinking, do I want to go for the extra damage on the Freya? Still in the end went for the Freya. Also, Freya Plume is just super strong as a combination in the first place. So I was like, yeah, might as well just send that. Might as well just use that. Last pick once again on the Fucho. In this case, I actually went for the Mio. Mio is kind of nice, but maybe in some case Obol is better because Mio S2 is not a full 100% rate, even if you have way more accuracy than the enemy. So you can still miss those freezes by a decent, substantial amount. But in this case, we do actually have this all the way moving first. He was still banning out the Plume, which was pretty interesting to see. Because I did expect the Plume to not be the banning factor. So in this case, we did actually kill 1 unit straight off the get-go. And from here, we can just steal a lot of attack bar. Maybe the freeze would have been better, but in most cases, I don't really like the freeze as much. In this case, going in for the S2 does get a little bit of a hit myself. That is totally fine. We will get the revive. That's also fine. So in this case, silences, not that many for the silences, not that many for the freezes, but this Doki is kind of squished, so that's really good. Plus, we have the anti-heal sitting at the Tiamat, which is fairly important. Anti-heal currently, no wait, it's anti-heal is still there, that's really good. So I was checking it from there, but you can check it from there. But that's always good to have the anti-heal on a unit that has Amber, because then the Amber stack pretty much provides 0 healing, which is always nice to see, and then you just simply take it out. So that's also kind of the way of like going back and forth of like, okay, how should you be addressing people that do kind of understand how to counter Cleave, especially if you go into Mythic rank, it will be a lot harder. It is doable, but you might need a little bit more of side characters here and there to make it work. But at least I would say for the casual players out there that just don't want to be having like 5-minute or 10-minute RTA matches all the time and actually want to blast through it a little bit faster, this is your way to go. So these two were actually definitely slower matches altogether. I had a lot more faster matches coming in. I think that these two were legitimately my 2 slowest matches. So let's go into a little bit of faster matches. So in most cases, I was just banning out the Doki because that's the only unit I don't have. A Lighthouse on the Lily always kind of gives like a little bit of mixed feelings. Like, okay, what is this unit going to be? Oh, this was an interesting one. This dude actually has full Lighthouse. So let's see if I can still cleave my way through a full Lighthouse team. So 4 Lighthouse over there. I think the 5th one was not a Lighthouse. So let's see what he did draft over there for the 5th pick. I think it was a... Oh, it was still a Lighthouse. So 5 Lighthouses against my Cleave team. So I was like, okay, what do we do over here? I wasn't too sure about the Plume. I was kind of contemplating also going for a Heinrich, which would have been pretty decent against this because of the heal block and everything. But in the end, let's see how this works with a Plume in there, because Plume in the end, it's super powerful as well. So most of the time, if I have Matsukio Me on the field, I prefer to start off with an S2 on the Freya, because it just simply gives more stats and I don't touch any of the enemies that might have Strife or anything crazy. We managed to straight up kill 1 unit right from the get-go, which was really nice. So in this case, we do get the double counter over there. Tiamat counts always do an insane amount of damage. Good thing he did not strip my invisibility. If I had the invisibility removed and he has a defense break, I probably would have had a pretty bad day. But in this case, it was still fine. Plume dies. Well, it does make sense. It's on triple accuracy, so triple accuracy doesn't have the most amount of stats. But in here, I was like, ooh, can I actually take that out? I was expecting to take it out on that S2. And that's also having more Messiah stats. I definitely should make the Messiah. Yeah, first thing I will give the lattices to that I have right now will go to the Messiah, making the Messiah. Probably even all the way, like 5-5-5. Nah, 4-5-5 is probably enough. But yeah, Messiah definitely does deserve it for how much I've been spamming this dude all around. He's just incredibly good. Like, if he just takes out these hits a little bit easier, it makes things a little bit faster. So you're not always clearing, like, insta-clear, 1 cleave, that kind of scenario. You try to make it work that way, but it doesn't always work that way. So in this case, we're still sitting off a few matches from the 3.1k. So let's get on with those matches. Okay, going into the next match, banning out the Linglo again. He actually banned out the Tiamat, so we're both cleavers, which is always interesting to see. So in this case, he did already have my Freya, and he did have the Lily, which are two potential super fast units. So I definitely went for the Biotin in here, especially with seeing the units on the other side with the Heinrich. Heinrich is not in killing range. Like, Heinrich can never kill on a Revelation. He can do a good bit of damage, but he still needs 2 units to actually make that work. So in this case, it was like, okay, who's going to be fastest? Because I do have the Biotin. If I have the Biotin, I do expect that if he goes for any AoE, I expect my Biotin to move. If he goes any AoE against the Tsukiyomi, I probably still expect to move. So let's see how fast he is going to be. So in this case, does actually move in front, and I think he went for an S2. Went for an S2, I still left because I'm just really fast. Plus, he doesn't have any bulwarks on his units that are decently fast as well. And then the main thing that I actually do, if the Freya already move, which is kind of a trick, I first go for a boost up on the Biotin and with the Tsukiyomi, and then I go for the boost on the Messiah. So I don't right away go for the boost of the Messiah because my Tsukiyomi is not fully stacked. So it's just a little bit more of a safety measurement. But we're fighting the same guy, so he does know my Messiah tech. So in this case, he bans out the Messiah. I go for the Yeli. I do have Plume in this setup already as well. He steals my Tsukiyomi, which is one of those, like, okay, is a little bit dangerous too. So let's go for the Biotin in there. And then we added in, I think in the last one, I was kind of looking around like, yeah, what would actually make sense over here? I don't think that's, it kind of makes sense to go for the Lilium because in this case, it would have potentially done something. In this case, he actually went for a pretty bad rotation because what he should have done, I think he goes for the twin trick on the Heinrich. Does he do that? I do think so, because he should have went for the twin trick on, I would probably say, yeah, twin trick on Heinrich, which is definitely a mistake, because he could have stunned these 2 units over here, and then my match would have been pretty bad. So in this case, he goes for the AoE, and because of that AoE, my Biotin moves. Well, actually, I would have had her move in the first place, but the Biotin moves, and then you just simply cut, and then just simply, like, steal the turn and start killing things. So that is definitely one of those things. And that's how I got to Mythic. So those are pretty much my matches. Most of the matches went like that. Especially the earlier matches were a lot easier than this. Like, this was definitely a little bit more back and forth. And I didn't want to showcase like matches in like Platinum, like lower ranks or the low Diamond ranks, because these were the matches that actually made sense to actually get here. Hope you did enjoy this video. If you have similar ideas for these units, I definitely would recommend Biotin on 441, Tsukiyomi on 411, Messiah high damage, Yeli high damage. Don't mess up your Yeli in the first place, and just work with these kind of units. It's pretty fun, and it definitely doesn't take like 5 minutes per match, which is pretty chill in my opinion. And that's the main thing that I did do it for. Would you ask, like, say, how far can you push if you actually were to push like way higher than this? I'm not too sure, to be honest. Like, there are few people that are playing this kind of style here and there where you do see some Messiahs. Like, this is pretty much the playstyle that I did. This is kind of the playstyle that I did. So here you do see a few people actually making it to pretty substantial, decent ranks with this. So it is definitely possible, but it is a little bit harder to do. I do want to find one match, however, with my Biotin, because I was hoping that I had one good match with the Biotin where I went for a double rotation. So let me find one, and then we call it a video. Let's see if it worked out in this one. Not sure. Maybe I'll just cleave it in one hit, but the main thing that I do want to do is, well, I'm actually on the opposite side. So yeah, I went for an S2 because of the S2. Simply Biotin moves. That's the main thing about the Strife. So not exactly what I wanted to showcase, but it does give you the feeling of like how strong the Strife is. It's like, oh, I'll send the S2. I'm good to go. No, you're not. Yeah, probably this is a good example. So he actually banned the Heinrich, which is understandable, but Biotin is going to be the real issue. So in this case, we do have a pretty tanky team up front. So we go for an S2 over there. We boost up the Messiah. Messiah moves in front of the Biotin in this case. So that's also why I don't want to have Biotin on the absolute fast set. So we go for skill over here. We do a good bit of damage. He does get lighthouses and those kind of things, but it's not enough. I boost again. Messiah takes an insta turn with another S3. And that just nearly takes out the whole battlefield. So that is definitely a combo that a lot of people are banning against. And that's the strongest combo out there if people actually let you play that. So those are kind of the mechanics that I'm working with. Biotin on Strife, absolutely toxic. And yeah, hope you did enjoy this video. Hope to see you as always in the next one. In the Discord, and check out the content tab for the guide video archive, which contains all of the guides that you might need. Hope to see you there.